What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so before I get into this video, y'all gonna trip off the name, but it ain't that guy. Shout out to the brother Anthony Davis. Not that Davis, not the one that just got traded. Shout out to brother Anthony Davis for the donation to the channel via the PayPal. Much respect to you for showing love to Too Raw for TV. All right, so I want to talk about Adam Silver, man, who is the so-called commissioner of the NBA, and I think that nobody would dispute the belief and the assessment of millions that Adam Silver's tenure with the NBA as commissioner over the past 10 to 11, I think 11 years now, has been at the best, like most positive spin on it, a disappointment. And to someone like myself, I think it's been a borderline disaster. Now, I guess people can say, well, how can it be a disaster? The NBA is still profitable. Well, look, when David Stern departed as commissioner back in 2014, I think it was February 2014, if I'm not mistaken, you can make an argument the NBA was sort of like on a slight decline, but it was still in pretty good shape. We're still in pretty good damn shape. Low management was pretty much not a thing at that point. It still wasn't really much of a thing. The stars more or less still played, although we were starting to see a little bit of more of, guys taking games off. But the product, I think, was still a relatively healthy product. I don't think it was the NBA of its prime in the 80s and 90s, but in the early 2000s, but it was still a healthy product. Adam Silver has proceeded, in my opinion, since he's taken over, to almost systematically destroy the NBA. First of all, this is just my opinion. He seems to look at the NBA in the eyes of a lawyer / marketing executive. He keeps trying to come up with gimmicks or alterations to the product, and they think that that's going to fix it. Like, let's just make it shinier. Let's do something new, and that's going to spark interest. That's not what it is. The problem isn't that the game is, repetitive, and you got to do something to spice it up. The problem is we like the game the way it was played before. We love the game the way it was played before. And analytics, that's what it is. They can talk about the evolution of the game, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, what has killed the NBA, in my opinion, has been analytics. Analytics destroyed it because it started back in the late 2000s, which coincided with the arrival of Steph Curry, which is why people tend to say, oh, Steph Curry started this thing. But no, that's not what it was. The front offices, we saw it with baseball. Remember when Billy Beane was the general manager of the Oakland A's? And everybody kept wondering, man, how Billy Beane keep getting all these great teams with such a small budget? And he was looking at analytics. And he was transforming how organizations or front offices looked at baseball, as far as building a team. Prior to that, you looked at certain metrics like batting average, RBIs, you looked at certain metrics, how many runs a guy's driving in, how many runs they scored, et cetera, et cetera. Billy Beane, I think I'm saying his name correctly, right? Billy Beane, he looked at advanced metrics. He looked at on-base percentage. Like, for instance, he said, you know what? It doesn't matter if a guy strikes out 200 times a year. It doesn't matter if he's only batting 250. If he has a 390 on-base percentage, well, then that's more valuable than the guy that's hitting 300 because he's getting on base so frequently. And if you get people on base, you're creating more scoring opportunities. So let's go for guys who, you know, drive in runs, hit home runs, and get on base. And I mean, I'm kind of going a little bit too far into that, but then you start seeing that expand throughout sports in general. Adam Silver, in my opinion, has embraced that. I don't think David Stern truly embraced analytics. He was older. You know, he was kind of more about the way the game was presented as it is, with a good mix of small, the mid-range, three-point shot, and inside play. But Adam Silver has embraced totally going toward analytics. And, you know, with him going off, it's been totally one way as far as pushing how teams play. And it's become so repetitive. And it's become boring. Everybody emulates the Golden State Warriors. But if you recall, before the Warriors, there were the Spurs. Remember the last little gas with the Spurs teams, they had changed how they played. Remember, Spurs were more of a defensive team. Remember in the late 90s, 2000s, the Spurs were more of a half-court, grinded-out type team. Tim Duncan, those guys, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, the young guys, young Kawhi Leonard, all those shooters, they kind of played differently. But it wasn't, you know, excessive. You know, they were probably taking like 22, 23 three-pointers a night, right? But you still had some post play. And you had a lot of mid play, you know what I'm saying? A lot of mid-range play. You still had guard play, but you still had all around, and you know, very exciting basketball to watch, in my opinion. But now it's gotten to the point where we saw Golden State do what they did, and that's phenomenal. But everybody's a copycat. And, you know, Adam Silver's done nothing to bring to ring that in, to reel that in, you know what I'm saying? Then it's all these gimmicks. All these gimmicks, these changes, it just doesn't seem like somebody that's actually played basketball and loved the game, how they would approach it. Look, David Stern wasn't a great athlete, obviously, but he was a basketball fan. He did play, from what I remember reading, I think he played like recreational basketball when he was younger. So he was a fan of the game. He played basketball. He knew basketball. He was a huge New York Knicks fan. If I remember correctly, he was a huge fan of Harry Gallatin. I don't know if Adam Silver's a big basketball fan like that. I think he's more of a wonderkind when it comes to marketing, right? And I think that's, you know, some other things obviously have helped him along the way too, you know. But I don't think this guy really loves basketball in the way that we all grew up loving it. Like I don't know. You know, at the end of the day, I just never was wowed by this guy. And he seems like a pushover, you know? And, you know, the players, I'm all for player empowerment. But when it gets to the point where it becomes a detriment to the product of basketball and the quality of basketball, you know, it's been a disaster. So, you know, I don't even know. At this point, man, I think Adam Silver should, for the sake of the product, for the sake of the NBA, man, he should just step aside. When is it? Like, I thought he was leaving anyway. Wasn't it rumored a couple years ago he was supposed to leave to become an executive with Disney or something? And that just went to pot, and he, you know, go away, man. Have somebody like Joe Dumars be the commissioner. You know, somebody that actually played the game. I remember reading about how I think the first commissioner of the ABA was George Mikan. He brought credibility to the league. And I believe it was his idea for the red, white, and blue ball. You know what I'm saying? He actually played the game. So it's like, I think the next commissioner needs to be an actual former player, man. I really believe that. And I think that it should be Joe Dumars. Joe Dumars would make a wonderful commissioner. He's respected. You know what I'm saying? He, like I said, he actually played the game and he knows the game. And I think he still has a finger on the pulse of what fans want to see. You know what I mean? And all these gimmicks, man, is killing the league, man. I'm not even going to watch the All-Star game. If it's not played in the way that we normally watch or associate with it, I don't want to watch it. Then they're going inviting Caitlin Clark to the men's All-Star three-point. Why? What are you doing? They keep looking at expanding the fan base, but you're just bringing in casuals and you're destroying your natural, real, actual fan base. This is the thing. Casuals can do things like look at clips, look at video, look at games from streaming sites, or sometimes even illegal streaming sites. They're not your hardcore fans. They're going to actually go out there and support the product all the time, you know, through thick or thin. But when you're alienating the fan base, this is what happens. Anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.